Hello everybody, it's me, Rosie. Hello, I hope you're all okay. Welcome to my Friday craft session for Mindspace Week. This one's very exciting for me. I've thought a lot about it. I've done lots of kind of playing around to try and do the best session for you. So first of all, I'd like to apologise if the description for today's session is slightly different, because I kind of ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole in how I was doing this. It should be fairly similar, but I just got really into it and I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping you will too. It's quite exciting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to read this quote to you, which I've got over here, and I've put this in my journal, which is what we're going to be working on today. And because it's Mindspace Week, it really got me thinking about this idea about creativity. And if you've watched any of my sessions before, you'll know that I bang on constantly about how I think that all people are creative and capable of being artistic. And I always try and make my sessions show that everyone is capable of it, because I think we're sold this idea that art is only for people who are good at it. Or people who are making money from it. Now, I do that, that's what I do for my job, but it's also my passion because I absolutely love it. And I don't think that takes away from the fact that every single person on this planet is capable. So I'm going to draw you over to this quote here, because that's kind of what has been my basis for today's session. So the quote is this: being able to draw and paint isn't what makes you creative. Those are skills, and skills can be taught and developed. Creativity is a way of feeling, thinking and being. So that's the bit we're going to work on today, that the idea that creativity is a way of feeling, thinking and being. And I've been like watching quite a few videos and trying to work out what I'm going to do. And essentially what I realized is, first of all, the best thing to do if you're unsure about how to make art and you want to do it for feeling good and mindfulness is mark making. The best way I can describe mark making is if you watch a preschool child pick up a pen or paintbrush. There is absolutely no fear, no consequence to their actions. They are just making marks. There is no worry about what people are going to think of them when they've finished their piece, or where it's going to go, or whether people will think they're rubbish or not. That's what we're going to do today. So we're going to do a lot of mark making. But the other thing that I've realized is that because we're so worried about we've got so many inhibitions about how we feel about what we create, and that there's going to be a consequence. Oh, well, you're rubbish at that, why would I continue? Is a lot of the things we're going to do today is layering up. So what I found is that you do some mark making and then basically cover over it. So you're really just making for the sake of making. You're making marks and there's no consequence at the end of it, because you're probably not going to see it at the end. But it will be beautiful, I promise you that. So I'm going to move this notebook away. Now there's a few things that we're going to do. You'll probably see here that there's tons of bright colours and patterns, and I'm going to teach you how to make these marks and patterns really easily. And the process, I think, is the important part. It's the process that we're hopefully going to enjoy and want to continue doing. And you can do it in such a way that you don't need to think about it, you don't need to worry. You'll hopefully kind of zone out in that lovely Zen mindful space, which is where I go if I'm painting. And at the end of it, you can hopefully be really proud of what you've done, but also you don't need to be. That's the great thing about it. So one of the things, so I've got this notebook, and I've sort of taken inspiration from the cover and kind of stuck with that sort of colour range. And I'm going to teach you how to make beautiful pages like this, really simple. And then I've got the quote here. I'm going to show you how we can do cut out bits that we can stick in. And hopefully the whole thing, each separate process is enjoyable and feels nice. And there's no fear, no worry, no tension. It's all good. And the other thing I want to show you is this, which is hopefully how we're feeling now and how we'll feel at the end. So I saw this and I've copied this from a picture I saw, but I love this. So someone has written, I'm not where I want to be, but then they have painted over the top so that all that's left is I'm here. So that's where we are now. We're here, and it doesn't matter where we're going or where we've been, because we're here, and that's the most important thing. We're going to have a great time. So first things first, I'm going to attempt to move all of these things out of the way. I will show you these later, but I'm going to show you how we make them first. So the first thing that we're going to do is get ourselves a couple of bits of card. I'm going to show you two different processes really quickly and then show you how we might use them. I'm going to plonk them over there. Hopefully they'll be all right. I'm sure they'll be fine. So I've got two pieces of card here. You don't have to do this on card. You can do it inside your notebook or journal if you so wish. But this is just the simplest way of showing you the process. Super easy, but it's really fun. So I've got a piece of craft card here, which is just like your brown card. Again, you don't have to use this. You can use whatever you like, but I'm going to use this for the second process. So the first one, I've just got a plain piece of card. I would say this is a mint green. You can do it with white. You can do it with whatever colour you please. I would say you're best with a light colour, just so that your mark making shows up a bit. And then what I'm going to do is I've got myself some washi tape. So if you've not heard of washi tape, I don't actually know what it means, but it's WASHI. You can get it in most stationery shops, and it's basically small tape, but it's not super sticky. So the point of this is that we can stick it down onto our card and we'll be able to peel it away when we're finished with it, which is quite nice. So if you try this with sellotape or like parcel tape, I mean, you could probably do it with masking tape, but some masking tape is really sticky. So this is the sort of stuff you want. So this is really fun and really easy because essentially we're just going to grid it up. So we're going to do a piece along each side of the card so that you're basically creating a border. And this is something everyone can do. It's like all you've got to do is try, and it doesn't matter if it's not straight either. It just means that when we're doing our mark making, it just gives us the opportunity to try different shapes and different patterns. Okay, so I've gone around the edge like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one down the middle. And again, if you're the sort of person that really likes kind of order and everything to be symmetrical, hello, are we back? Oh, we're back. We're back. Wonderful. I have no idea what happened there. It did just start raining, so I don't know if the weather is having an impact on my internet. I don't know if that's a thing, but it just so happened that my screen went blank the second it started to absolutely tip it down. I've also noticed if I look out my window, there's a man on a roof, so I don't know what, not my roof, someone else's roof. I don't know what he's doing. Okay, so whilst we had a moment of darkness on the camera, I was just gridding up the paper or the piece of card. Now you don't have to do it in this many pieces, but I like the shape of them. I guess they're kind of like playing cards, which is nice. But you can okay. So hopefully I'm still here and you can still hear me. I don't know what's going on with my technology, but everything seems fine. It just keeps going black. So I'll keep going and we'll see what happens. So we've made ourselves our little squares or rectangles. Now, this is the fun bit because this is where we're going to start making layers. We're going to start making marks. And again, you don't have to be good at it. You don't have to try very hard. It's just about enjoying the process and enjoying the feeling of making patterns, really. And again, it's like imagine yourself as a toddler with a crayon doing some squiggles. That's all we need to be doing. So what I've got myself here is a crayon. It's a white one, so it's one that you can't really see. You could also use like an oil pastel like this. I've nicked most of my materials today from my children, so they don't have to be fancy ones or expensive ones. So we want a nice light colour, And I'll show you for why. It's because we don't want it to show up. So that's all. To begin with, we're drawing without being able to see what we're drawing. So again, there's no kind of, it doesn't have to look amazing at the end of it. You don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm going to start making marks on each rectangle, and I'm going to do a different mark for each one. So for this one, I might do a squiggle. Now you can watch my hand do it, but you're not going to see it because it's basically the same colour. That's okay. And this one, I'm going to do maybe a series of circles that overlap each other. I might do a series of lines on one of them. You might have a favourite pattern that you like, and you could do that. You could do that on all of them. But it's just about, at this point, it's just about making shapes. And I'm going to try and make each one different. But I can't see what I'm doing, so I couldn't possibly tell you if it's going to be any good, because it doesn't matter. What else? Maybe some little, just some little like lines, maybe. Fun. What else have we got? Maybe some triangles. Sure, let's do some triangles. I've sort of forgot what shapes were for a second there. And then the last one, maybe I'll do like some sun rays. Right, so you can't see that at all. I can't see that at all, but here's the fun bit. What I've got here, these series of wheels, they are watercolours. Now you can buy these as a stack and they're super cheap. They're aimed at children. You don't need your watercolours to be fancy. They can be the cheapest ever because it doesn't really matter as long as you can get colour. And then you're going to get yourself a paintbrush and some water. And you don't have to, if you don't have watercolour, that's fine. You could also use like poster paint if it's watered down, or acrylic if it's watered down. As long as it's kind of watery and see-through, that's the main thing. So then this is another great bit. So this process is just about choosing colours. All we have to do is choose colours and where they're going to go. And then this is really fun. So I'm going to go in with this. I feel like this red one would be nice. Start with that. And then I'm going to start painting each rectangle in a different colour. And I might do a different colour for each thing. But here's the fun bit. Because we've done those patterns with the wax crayon, it's going to show through. And your paint is not going to stick to the wax. So then you can sort of go through the colours. You could do a few different colours for each one. And then it goes over like this. And then we might go in with like a yellow. So I'm kind of almost creating a sunset here. And this is also a really mindful, relaxing, fun task that you could do with kids as well, because all of this stuff is stuff that kids can do. And that's kind of the point. I want kids to be able to do it, to prove to you guys that it's not about being a skilled artist. It's just about having a nice time and enjoying the process. So I'm going to go ahead and go round all the, and now I'm going to do this super quickly just to work through it. So please don't feel you have to go at the same speed as me. I'm just being a Speedy Gonzales so I can show you all the different things. So really, there are no rules here. I would just recommend doing what I've done with the tape. And again, you don't have to do the same shapes as me. You don't have to do the same size as me. You can do whatever you like. But the washi tape really is fun. When you take it off, it's going to be very exciting, I can tell you. So I think as long as you stick to the process that I'm showing you, they're really the kind of only rules. You can do it however you wish, really. This is fun. And when, I promise you as well, when you take the tape off, it's going to look amazing. In fact, so good that when I did my example pieces a few days ago, and I cut them up. So I cut them up so that I could put them into a journal. So the idea is that we get these lovely pieces of art card, I suppose we would call them. And we could stick them in the journal. But my partner said to me that he thought that they would be really nice framed. So I'll show you some finished products soon when we've gone through the process. And I think you'll agree that you could just frame them. You could turn them into gift tags. They could be cards for people, but you could frame them as well. Okay, so I'm just working my way through these. And the other thing about this is because we're doing layers, right, you're taking your time on each layer, and then essentially we're going to cover over it with the other stuff. And that might feel sort of counterintuitive because it's kind of, oh, well, what's the point? Well, the point is that you're doing this, and you could essentially rip this. So, well, actually, one of the things we are going to do is rip some stuff up, just to prove to you that the process is the most important bit. It's enjoying choosing which colour you're going to use and which shape you're going to use, which direction you're going to go in. They're the only things you need to think about. And that's why I think this is the perfect sort of thing to be doing for Mindspace Week, because that's all you need to think about. I really like different art skills that involve kind of things that make the next step easier, if that makes sense. So you don't have to worry about anything. There's no worry there at all. It's just enjoying each bit. And you might think, oh no, I've gone wrong here, I didn't like that. But don't worry, because we're going to do loads of stuff. We're going to do loads of stuff after it anyway. So what colours haven't I done? Let's see, I haven't done a very pink one. So I'm just making sure that the paint, has got quite a lot of water on it. Because if I was to go over this with really thick paint, then you might not find that the wax shows through, because it just doesn't get a chance to sort of reveal itself, if you will. But hopefully you can see those shapes on the camera. Yeah, they're looking pretty good. I've got one more to do. I think I'll do another blue one. I quite like this blue as well. This is a nice one. And okay, lovely. So that's our watercolour done. So we can move our watercolour to one side. I'll stack mine up slightly so I've got a bit more space. I'm going to move this paintbrush to one side, and I'm just going to show you very quickly what we've got here. So all we've done is done some patterns with a wax crayon and then gone over it with watercolour in various different colours. Now there's a few more bits we're going to add on to this, but I'm going to move this to one side so it's got a bit of time to dry. So we want this paper to sort of dry out so that we can then add some pens and stuff to it. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you the next bit. So I've got my bit of brown card, got my craft card here. So I think at this point I'll do a bit of showing you some stuff. So I've done loads of little cards, and I'm going to show you how to create these when our first piece is dry. And they can be used for, as I've said, many different things. And the next thing we're going to do is, so I've created this piece here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's again really easy. We're using tape to create a border, and there's no consequence to it. We're just painting and making shapes. It's super, super fun. But the other thing that I wanted to show you at this point is, you go, oh, that looks difficult. Promise you it isn't difficult. It's really fun. But the other really exciting thing about this is I've done another version of this, and then I've just chopped it up. I've just chopped it up into pieces. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because I know how difficult it can be when you're trying to do something creative and you don't think you're very good at it. And then you go, well, that's rubbish. What am I going to do with that? I might as well throw it in the bin. No, definitely not. We can cut it up and create something beautiful out of it. So all I've done is I've chopped up, it was basically the same as this, but without the border. And then I've just chopped it up into tiny little squares. And then I've hole punched each corner. And then I've added string to it to make it into bunting. I'm just like flapping it in the camera. Sorry about that. So yeah, I've created this bunting, but I thought there's loads of different things that we could do with this. So if we're thinking about sort of mindfulness and well-being, so I quite like the bunting idea because I really love this idea of kind of adding positive affirmations to it. So we could either write on the front of it, we could write on the back of it, we could turn it into a little book that we could read every morning that has something positive written in it. And in fact, I might do that. If we have some time at the end, I might even do that. But if we sort of concertina it up, it's something nice to hold, it's tactile, it fits in your purse, you could take it anywhere with you. And all we've done is this process that we're going through now, where we're layering up crayons, paints, pens, pencils, patterns. That's all we're doing. And then you get something beautiful like this at the end of it, which I just think is lovely. So this is, I found this bunting made me think of one of the things they say when you go into labour, when you're a lady with child, is that positive affirmations can really help if they're visible, it's like a visual aid. So some people will put bunting up with positive affirmations to help them get through. And so this kind of made me think of that. So you could just do this for everyday life, which is really exciting. But again, we can add it to our journal, which is what I'll show you in a little while. So I'm just going to throw my bunting over here, and we're going to create a version of this very quickly. So for this one, I use this sort of like papery masking tape. It's like parcel tape that's not shiny. Now this stuff is a bit more sticky, so I did find that it did sort of pull up a bit of the paper. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try not to stick it down too hard and see what happens. The reason I'm going with this one is because it's a bit thicker, so it means that the border is a bit thicker. Also doesn't help that I've put brown tape on brown card, so you can barely see it. That's good, Rosie, well done. But you will see when I start painting, because you'll see that it kind of doesn't stick to the tape. So again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just popping it round each section of the border. Like that. I think that's, yeah, we're all in. So for this one, I've got myself, it's my trusty bowl with cling film on it to create a paint palette. And I've got myself a couple of paintbrushes. Now for this one, I've used acrylic paint because acrylic paint is a lot more pigmented, obviously, than watercolour. You're not putting water with it. So it just means it stands out a bit more. So you get this lovely effect on here. Now, if you don't have acrylic paint, that's absolutely fine. You could use poster paint. You can use any kind of paint you want, really. I just thought I'd show you it with this. So you can do this with watercolour as well, whatever paints you've got, really. But I thought it's quite visibly quite nice to watch as well, because again, it's just showing you how easy it can be. You don't have to be good at painting. You don't have to, this is not fancy stuff at all. Oh, Veronica, that's genius. So Veronica's just said that you can reduce the tack on masking tape by putting it on your clothes first. Of course. I mean, why did I never think of this? That makes total sense. I've used tape on my clothes to get dog hairs off it before. Never thought of then using it to stick on my card. Yes. So if your masking tape is very sticky, stick it all over your top first and then put it down, and then it won't stick to your paper so much. Well done, Veronica. That's amazing. And thank you so much, Michelle. I hope you get a chance to watch it later. Thank you. So I've gone with a colour range that I like. Again, you can do all the colours, or you can do a selection of colours. Again, I've kind of taken inspiration from the front cover of the journal. Where did I put the journal? Over here. So I kind of like these sort of purples, pinks and blues, and then I've added some greens and turquoise in as well. And then basically, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it so you can see. I mean, there's no skill involved, because creativity isn't about skill. That's something we can learn. That's something we can master. This is just making marks, and where you think it looks good, how it feels. You might make small brush strokes. You might make really big long ones. You can go in different directions. There is absolutely there's no worry here about trying to be good at something. We're just putting colours together that we like. So I've chosen a colour range of colours I love, and then I'm just putting them together where I feel. So for example, let's sort of delve into my brain and how my brain might do this. So I've done a lovely purple stroke here. Maybe I'll put it a bit closer so you can see. Done a lovely purple stroke here. So I'm feeling like I might go in with the light pink, which complements the purple. And I quite like this sort of brush stroke where you go quickly and they're quite straight. But then I might get some of the sort of turquoisey one, and I might go across it with a wave because I like wavy shapes. You might do a circle if you want. You might colour the circle in. You might mix some colours to see what happens. And if you mix the colours to see what colour you get, you might then find you've got a new colour that you love. And then you might want to replicate that somewhere else. So all of these things that I'm saying are all things that you can be thinking about whilst you're painting. And that's all you need to think about. That's all my brain is doing. All my brain is doing is going, oh, I might put a bit of green here now. Oh, that bit of green looks nice. Maybe I'll put a bit of purple here. But I might do a really long stripe that goes all the way across just to see what happens. So it's just all about colours and space and negative space. That's all we're doing. And hopefully, because this is what my brain does when I'm doing, actual work, and it makes me very happy, which is why I'm very grateful I have the job that I do. But this is why I'm so convinced that if more people do this, it just really takes away this idea that you have to be really skilled at something to enjoy it. And it's just not true. I mean, I'm terrible at embroidery and knitting and sewing and anything like that. But embroidery is really fun to do. And it's a really lovely headspace. Even though I'm absolutely terrible at it, I still like doing it because it's really therapeutic, like punching the needle in and then finding the bit that it comes out, and you're just doing that over and over again, and that's all you think about. And so it's just a really mindful place to be, and hopefully this will be too if you have a go. I love the contrast between the purple and the turquoise, so that's something I've thought a lot about, and again, that's all I'm thinking about. Oh, I love this purple and turquoise together, doesn't that look nice? I'll do some more over here. So as you can see, I've created a lovely palette of colour with some really thick brush strokes. I've been jabbering the whole time, so I've really not put much kind of skill into this at all. I've just chose nice colours and put the brush on the card, and that's it. That's it. That's all it takes. And it felt really good to do it. It felt really nice. Now you might do this and say, well, it doesn't look very good. I'm not very happy with how it looks. Don't worry about it, because we're going to put loads of stuff on top of it anyway, so it doesn't matter. And if you still don't like it, we can chop it up and turn it into lots of tiny little bits that will look beautiful because they've had loads of different marks made on them. So that's this one. So at this point we can take the tape off, because I would then work on the border, and I'm going to just see how, hey, look, it's come off all right. This is why I like the tape, because it creates a really lovely straight line. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was to give you guys that kind of the opportunity to look at your work and see it as a piece of art, because it's got this lovely board around it, and it suddenly transforms it and makes you realise that it is worthy of whatever it is you're using it for. There you go, look at that. I mean, you could frame that, and it's lovely. But I'm not going to, because I'm going to add to it, because it's not about a finished product. It's just about messing about with paper and paints and pens. That's it. So I want this to dry before I do anything else. But what I can do is start thinking about the border. So at this point, my watercolours are still a little bit damp. So I'm going to keep that to one side and continue with this piece. So I'm going to get myself a black pen. So I've got one of these Posca pens because they're great, but you could use a Sharpie or anything. Any kind of marker pen that's quite tactile, and doesn't matter if you get a bit of paint on it. You want something quite strong. You want a strong black marker pen. I mean, you don't have to. You could use paint. You could use whatever. But essentially, I'm going to draw a line to create this lovely bordered space. And this is quite fun. I don't know about you guys, but I find drawing lines quite therapeutic, especially if it's a line to follow. So I'm following this line, and it's takes quite a lot of concentration. So I think that's why I quite like doing it, because again, you can't, if you're trying to draw a really nice straight line with a black pen, you can't be thinking about anything else, can you? So we're going to go along there like this. It doesn't matter if you go wrong, because we're going to go over it again. So there, we've created this lovely border. And then, yes, so the next thing I'm going to do is create some corners by just drawing 2 lines here. And I'm going to do that for each corner. Now, the reason that I did this is because, as I've just said, I quite like drawing lines. I think that's quite fun. So it's kind of like you're changing the concentration on your brain, because this was quite free flowing and quite abstract, and you're just sort of brush strokes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to paint these sort of lines along the border, which requires a bit more concentration, but it's totally different because you're doing a neat line. But it's not a hard line. You don't have to be fantastic, but I think it's quite nice to do. And then we're going to freehand it as well, which is fun, because I don't want you to have to like mark it out. It's just the enjoyment of painting a straight line. I would recommend anybody, I've said this before in this class before, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I recommend all of you go ahead after this and watch a pinstriping video. So pinstriping is guys who are doing like hot rod cars, and they have to draw really straight lines across the car, and they do it with one paintbrush, and they do it in one brush stroke, and it's really really therapeutic to watch. So essentially I'm just going to paint some straight lines. I've just chosen this lovely dark pink, and you want to sort of create like a square. If you make it the same sort of size as your corner, and then you leave a gap about the same size, and then you keep going, and it creates this lovely stripy effect. And that's quite fun because the brush strokes are totally different to how we did in the centre. So we've gone from doing lovely, fun, exciting brush strokes to concentrated straight lines. I've got a flat brush, so just in case you're wondering, you could do this with any paintbrush you like, but this is quite easy if you've got a flat brush. What colour am I using? I nearly went in with the wrong thing then. And I'm just going along until I get to the end. And I mean, I am wobbling a bit because I'm holding this up so you can see it. So I think I'm doing pretty well considering. Now you could do this with pen as well. You don't have to do this with paint if you feel more comfortable with pens. And they are not completely straight. They're not completely uniform, but it would just not look as fun if it was. I think that's why I like doing it like this. So I'm going to go across like each side, but then I'll do the other ends in different colour. And in fact, I might not do each side because I want you to see the next bit. This acrylic dries quite quickly compared to watercolour, obviously, because watercolour's got tons of water in it, and that's all got to evaporate. But this is kind of almost dry, so I'm fairly sure we can start using pen on top of it. Oh, I just put the wrong colour in. Never mind. Hey, why not? We can keep doing that. Quite like that, actually. I'm going to go in with the purple again. Those strokes look really lovely together with those two colours. Now you'll see I'm sort of going over the black pen, but I will go over that again when this is all dry, just to neaten it up. But it just breaks it up and makes it easier for your eyes to work with. Beautiful. So move my paint to one side. And again, I'm going in with a lovely thick black marker pen. So I've used this one. And you can decide if you're, again, this totally depends on like your feelings around symmetry and, you know, uniformity and things like that. Make it work for you. Like, for example, these squares, if you like measurements and things to be exact, then it's going to be a really mindful process for you to measure these out and make the squares exact. You can enjoy that and you can take your time with it. If you don't like things like that, I don't, then I'm just going to go ahead and paint it, and then I enjoy that process more. So the same goes for this drawing here. I've always said with a lot of my classes, if you don't feel confident freehanding it, you're not cheating if you draw something out in pencil and then go over it. That's fine, but you don't need to, because you're not doing this. You don't need to do this to show anybody. Nobody needs to see it. You can just have a go. And also I'm probably going to cover over it anyway with some other stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a load of flowers because I find those really easy to draw and I don't have to think about anything too much. and we'll just see what happens. I'm just going to draw wiggly lines and leaves. This is the other great thing about this process, is that certain materials work better on each other. So, for example, acrylic paint, when dried, is an absolute joy to draw on top of with a black marker pen. So it feels nice too. It's got a nice smooth feeling to it, which is very pleasing. And I'm not going to do any symmetry today. I'm not in the mood. So I'm just going to draw flowers. And you don't have to, you could do whatever you like, really. But I think generally speaking, like botanicals are a really good place to start with patterns, because there's so many shapes that are easy to draw but also feel nice to draw. So when you're deciding on a leaf shape, for example, I quite like doing a curvy one like that, but also you could do a pointy one like that, and that feels quite nice too. Also, the process of doing bigger and smaller leaves feels quite nice. I'm going to fill this up really quickly before I start talking about negative space. So let's do a great big flower here. Now, as you can probably see, I'm filling spaces up here. So it's kind of like Tetris. And that feels nice in itself, because I'm not thinking about what I want the flower to look like. All I'm thinking about is how I'm going to fill a gap. And again, that takes that worry away about trying to be good at something, because all I need to worry about is filling the space. This is the other reason why I wanted to do some smaller pieces as well, is because I think it can be quite daunting to expect people who don't do art all of the time to fill a big space and make it look good. So by breaking it up into small chunks like this, it takes away that fear of ruining it, because you're just filling tiny little spaces. I find that quite daunting sometimes. If I'm doing a massive board, it's like, where do you start? But by breaking each thing up into little sections, you can enjoy each bit, and you can know at the end that it's going to look great, whatever. So let's do some more leaves. And I'm just filling spaces here. And again, if you get to the end of this bit and go, oh, my leaves are rubbish, my flowers aren't very good, that's okay, because I'm probably going to scribble over them anyway, because it's not really about the flowers at all. It's not about the flowers looking like flowers. It's about enjoying drawing the shapes and then enjoying covering the shapes, essentially. So I'm going to do one more flowery thing here, like that, and then maybe do a quick little squiggly thing here just to fill that shape. So now you've got a couple of options. So this is the really exciting bit. It's this idea of negative space. So what I would recommend you do is, just for the sake of this process and the point that I'm trying to make, is you've spent this time putting all these beautiful colours together and filling out this space, right? You've done this lovely painting, but now I've drawn these flowers on the top of it, and I think I'm going to colour them in black, right? Now, this for me feels quite hard, because it's like, wow, I'm just covering up all my work. I'm covering it all up. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you're covering up, because it's the process that counts. And colouring in is very therapeutic, right? And especially if you've got a great big black marker pen. So I'm not going to do all of this because I'm conscious of time, but I would then go ahead and fill all of these gaps with the black pen or whatever colour you're using, and completely fill those spaces, right? Because whatever you do, the more marks you make, the more texture you're going to get, and the more exciting it's going to look at the end, I think. Now, I'm not going to colour all of this in, but if you imagine that I colour each of these leaves and flowers in, you're then going to have a piece of work that is mainly black. So this is where I'm hoping my watercolour is dry. Yes, it is. So I'm going to bring this back, because this process and this process are now fairly similar. It's all about layering up, essentially, with lots of different items. So this is, yeah, I'd say this is nice and dry. I think it's dry enough. So I think what I would then go in and do is, what did I do next? I think I probably got a marker pen. So I'm going to get a slightly thinner marker pen. Yeah, nice thickish nib. And I'm just going to do more patterns. So I'm not thinking about what pattern is here and what colours I've used. I'm purely going to make patterns that I want to. So again, I'm going to do a selection of circles, and I'm going to fill the space, but it's not a big space to fill, so it's not too scary. And then we could do, I don't know, I might do sort of like overly shapes. Again, I'm doing this very quickly. You can take your time. What else have we got? Maybe some spirals. Now, the way I want you to imagine this, I know I've mentioned a few times that you imagine that you're like a preschooler, sort of wielding a big thick crayon, but it really is kind of what I want you to imagine at this point, because when I've finished doing these marker pen marks, what else do we want? I'm going to do a series of lines. We're going to do that thing which I'm sure you all did at school, which is where you drew a wiggly line a bit like this on a big piece of paper and then coloured in the gaps. So that's essentially what we're going to do next. More circles, and it doesn't matter if you go on the washi tape because we're going to take that off soon anyway. Oh my goodness, we've got 10 minutes left. We can do this. Please take your time doing this. This is supposed to be a really lovely therapeutic session, and I'm just going super quick. But as long as you sort of follow the general order in which I do things, there are absolutely no limitations at all, really. You can do whatever you like. What else have we got? I'm just trying to think. Oh, maybe I'll do some sort of like suns with lines. They look a little bit more like viruses than suns, but never mind. Okay, so I've gone in with the marker pen. So we've gone wax crayon, we've gone watercolour, we've gone marker pen. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to steal some of my child's pencil crayons. And again, I want you to apply the same kind of feeling and thoughts towards the background painting of this, where we're just filling negative space with colours that we like and in directions that we feel good about. So for example, I might get this red one. I'm going to go straight over to this guy here, and I'm going to colour in this. So you might decide to colour in the shapes that you've drawn, or you might decide to draw new shapes. So I'm going to draw some stars on this bit. So I've coloured in some of the shapes. I've completely ignored some of the shapes and drawn over them. Or the other option is to colour in the negative space. So the negative space is the bits that aren't the shapes, essentially. So for example, if I can find another one, so this circular one, for example, I might colour around some of the circles. And the reason I'm doing this with pencil is because you'll still see the watercolour and the wax relief show through. And I might get some of the colours. And the reason I wanted to use a selection of different, so pens and pencils, is because they feel very different. I feel like paint can be quite, it's quite floaty, and marker pens are quite permanent. But what I like about pencil crayons is, because they're designed for children, is they're quite like scribbly. You can scribble with them and it feels quite nice. I quite like the whole kind of process of scribbling. And you can do circular motions or you can do jaggedy motions, and it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if you're feeling angry, you could be quite jaggedy with it. But we can also do lovely shapes with it too. And we're still going to see everything through it. So that's why we've done the pencil kind of third way in. That's kind of why we're going with that one, because everything else will show underneath it. I'm just going to concentrate on these two so that we've got kind of a finished product at the end. Might do some sort of lines, some scribbles, might do some scribbling in here. Now at this point, I'm kind of open to suggestions really about what you might do next. So I'm going to go in with some acrylic paint and make some shapes with that. But you could do whatever you wanted, really. So, one of the other things is a biro. So biros are great because they're really thin lines, and you can be quite delicate with them. So we've gone wax relief, watercolour, lovely. Then we've gone marker pen patterns, then scribble with the pencil. And then we've got this, which we can do really tiny details with. So for example, here, I'm doing like tiny little circles with the biro, or you might do little lines. And again, you can just decide which bits based on the shapes you've created. So like this one here, just bash the camera as I'm doing it. So this one here, I've got this lovely shape here. So I might just fill that in with lots of little lines. So you're just filling spaces with different materials. That's all we're doing. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my acrylic paint back because it's quite thick and nice pigmented colours. I might get a thinner brush, and apparently we're going with the dark pink because I just dropped the brush into it, so that's the colour we're using. So we might do some nice sort of wavy lines. One of the other things you could consider is that you might go over into other boxes so that there's a continuation there, if you know what I mean. That can be quite fun, and you can sort of join them up at the end. But again, you're just making shapes, see how it feels. Let's get this purple. I love this purple, it's my favourite. And then you're just doing whatever you fancy, really. And then do a circle there. So yeah, we've got a few shapes on there. Might go in with the green. I'm going to just I'm just going to cut these two out because they're the ones that I've spent the most time on. But if you were to do this process on all of them, right now, this is the fun bit. We've got 3 minutes left. I can show you very quickly. So if you've done all of this, you've done each layer, you're happy with it, you might let your paint dry if you're not me. And hopefully the washi tape doesn't stick to your paper too much. If you've not put your tape on your clothes like me, the most ingenious thing I've ever heard. Now, this is where you can take stock of your work, and even though it doesn't matter how good it is, I'm confident that you will take the tape off, and not only take the tape off, but I think cutting them out helps. So I like to cut them out with an ever so slight border so that you can see that lovely slick straight line where we put the tape. So I'm going to cut it out. It's still wet because I've just painted it, but hopefully you can be more patient than me. And first of all, you're going to keep your offcuts because I think they'd be useful. But then you can take your piece of work and look at it and go, my goodness, how beautiful is that? All I've done is scribbled on a piece of card that had tape around it with various different materials, and it's gorgeous. And so what you'll find, I'm going to move my wet one over here and get these dry ones, and you look at these and you think, yeah, actually, do you know what, if I did put these in a frame of 4, they would look beautiful. They look absolutely stunning, and they're all just that process that we've just been through there. And like I say, you can add to this, you can do more to this, and you can chop it up and make it into bunting or whatever you like. But lastly, very quickly, before I go, because I do need to leave, is we can add this to our journals. So we can do this in journals in general. So everything I've just told you, you can just do in your journal. But I just love this idea of you sticking your work into your page, adding whatever. You can use the offcuts to write something down. You might give yourself a Friday affirmation, and that affirmation is this: I'm here, and here is where you want to be, right? And lastly, I'm just going to reiterate before I go that being able to draw and paint isn't what makes you creative. Those are skills, and skills can be taught and developed. Creativity is a way of feeling, thinking, and being, right? So that's it. That's done. We're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I think I'd quite like to do a like a longer version of this, or maybe like a more in-depth version of this. So please let me know if that's something you think you might be interested in. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed creating for the sake of creating, art for the sake of art, and not for being good at it. And I hope that your Friday affirmation is that you are good enough, because of course you are. It's beautiful. It's all beautiful. I hope it's not raining as much where you are as it is here, but never mind. We've had a good time, and thank you so much. I'll be back soon, as always. Enjoy the rest of your Mindspace week, and have a lovely weekend. I've been Rosie. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.